Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I'm going to do a very special second Mike's Instant movie review of sorts on the Von Erich movie, The Iron Claw. I have seen the film once and I did my first review. I left some things out and there was a good response from the first review. A lot of people agreed with what I said, some people didn't. But there was a few things that I forgot to mention in my first review of The Iron Claw, and I feel that I want to mention them. So first off, the guy that played David, I thought looked the part. There's been so much talk about how, the guy playing Kerry Von Erich, I believe his name is Jeremy Allen White. I haven't seen him before. It appears that he has a pretty good career going for himself. I've never seen Jeremy Allen White. I think he had a decent enough face for Kerry, but he was probably smaller than I even thought. He was probably in real life 5'8", maybe 160 pounds. And people were asking me, Mike, how big was Kerry Von Erich? Well, Kerry, I think he was listed as being 6'4". I don't know if he was actually that tall, but I think he was a legitimate 260 pounds at his biggest. That's the real Kerry Von Erich. And so yeah, there's quite a discrepancy, because whenever Kerry would stand next to Kevin in real life back in the 80s, Kerry was a little bit bigger. Probably 15 to 20 pounds bigger. Kevin was no small guy either. In fact, if you've seen the pictures of Kevin Von Erich with the actor who played him, Zac Efron, Kevin Von Erich is still bigger at age 60-something than Zac Efron, who's probably about 40 years old. I do think Zac Efron did a very good job, even a great job. I would say Academy Award nominatable for his portrayal of Kevin. And I think another thing that I wanted to mention in my review that I might have forgotten, this movie really is Kevin Survives. That's the movie, that's the Von Erich Iron Claw movie in 2 words, Kevin Survives. If you look at it from that perspective, all the details of, the down and dirty details of Kerry's foot, David having a daughter that wasn't mentioned, Kerry had a couple of daughters that weren't mentioned, and a wife when he passed away, when he committed suicide. The big exclusion of Chris Von Erich, that's got a lot of people up in arms. I'll get into that more in a moment. But if you really just look at it, the principal character of this movie, the central character, who we see all of these events through, are the perspective of Kevin, a lot of times telling his Pam, who would become his wife, his girlfriend then wife. So it's really, I wouldn't say a love story per se, but it's basically a survivor story. And if you look at it from that perspective, the tragedies that surround Kevin Von Erich, the character of Kevin Von Erich in this movie, the details that some of us are getting caught up on, and I'll get into some of these details, they're not as important as just the two-word fucking summary of this movie, Kevin Survives. If you just remember that Kevin survives, that's what this movie's all about. Another thing, folks, I wonder, there's been a lot of people, even, people that I really have a lot of respect for, people in the wrestling business are very upset that Chris was left out. They find it to be a personal insult, and I totally understand that perspective, and I feel a bit that way myself. However, I do wonder if those people that are critiquing and criticizing the exclusion of Chris have seen this film. And I'm wondering, for all the people that are talking about this movie, it seems like more wrestling fans, at least, are discussing this movie than actually seeing it. It seems like the movie is doing better with non-wrestling fans than wrestling fans. Wrestling fans are they hear, oh, no, Chris Von Erich, blah, blah, blah. Look at Kerry. Look at the guy playing Kerry. He's so small. And they tune out and they don't go see the movie, which I think is a mistake. Another thing that I think I talked about last time is that I do recall being on Actors Access. It's a website for actors to get work. A year and a half ago, wasn't really that long ago, and seeing that they were looking for actors to play some of these characters. Now, I don't know if they were looking for the Von Erichs at the time. I think they might have, I can't remember, it's been a year and a half, but I remember specifically they were looking for a Harley Race and a Ric Flair. And I was sending out I didn't feel like I fit any of the roles, okay? So I'm sending out this casting call to wrestler friends of mine that I thought might be able to pull off some of these roles. One of them that I do remember trying to send to my friends, or sending it to my friends, was Lance Von Erich. And The other thing is, you know, I was talking to a buddy of mine today who lived in Texas. He actually was able to see a live pro wrestling Von Erichs show probably in 81 or 82. And he's not a huge wrestling fan, but he remembers some of this stuff. And I'm trying to help him fill in holes of his memory. The thing here, folks, is that a lot of this, like he was asking, well, was Jimmy Garvin in this movie? And I said, no, you know, and like, you know, Gentleman Chris Adams, you know, my pal was asking, is Gentleman Chris Adams in this? No. The Freebirds feud is kind of in this movie, but really, if you're not paying attention, they don't really go into it. Like, how important was the Freebirds Von Erichs feud to the Von Erichs and to pro wrestling in general and world-class wrestling in general to help world class really raise to that huge level it was at in 84, 85, 86. They don't really get into that because, once again, this is not a wrestling movie. This is a survival movie with wrestling as the backdrop. So the nuances of the in-ring stuff that I would love to see this, you know, and I'd like to be involved in it, quite frankly, if this were to be made into a Netflix series or a Hulu series or HBO, whoever, yes, this could definitely be a series, a 6-part, 3-hour series, or a show, you know, seasons, 10 hours, 2 or 3 seasons. There's so much material. They left a lot of meat on the bones, so to speak, which hopefully might open some doors. And so if this movie, which I think is doing quite well at the box office, if it wins some awards, who knows? There might be more wrestling material. I mean, I've written a treatment for a TV series about pro wrestling, as a matter of fact, which I might have to dust off the bones for it. And I've written a couple of screenplays on pro wrestling stories that, you know, I'm always trying to advance those damn things. American Luchador and Wrestling with Sanity and all these wonderful things. So the point of the matter is this. If the wrestling fans would stop critiquing the goddamn movie and actually see it, and at least spend the money to see the movie and then critique away, perhaps that excitement, that box office success would prosper pro wrestling based mainstream movies and film. Now, do pro wrestling fans think, you know, 2 + 2 = 4? Often they don't. So, I mean, you know, you would think that goddamn wrestling fans would support a pro wrestling movie that is of this high quality, whether there's some mistakes made or the Ric Flair guy is a goofball or whatever. Still support the movie if you want to see more wrestling-based mainstream material. Now, maybe you don't. You know, maybe you're quite happy with the Vince McMahon documentaries on the fucking Peacock or whatever the fuck, and you want to live in that wrestling bubble. And so forth, and go right ahead. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that this Iron Claw movie is a success. It's an artistic success, and I'm, you know, paid my money to help contribute to make it a financial success. Why do people park next to me? I don't understand it. There's so many parking spots available, and people just see me and they're like, I want to park next to this guy. Why? Go somewhere else. But in any event, I think that the wrestling fans should support the Iron Claw. Go see it. I do want to say some other things. The guy that played Fritz, I forgot to mention him in my first review. I thought Fritz, the actor, I can't remember the name, I thought he was great. I am going to see this movie again on the big screen. The first time I saw it at a Regal Cinema, the next time I'll probably see it at AMC or Cinemark. No offense to Regal, but around these parts, the AMC and the Regal sound and screen are better. I do like the fact that I saw it at Regal initially, because it kind of, with that degraded quality of picture and sound, it kind of felt like I was more in the 80s, you know, when this thing took place. Let's talk about the Chris thing while we're at it. You know, there's so many people that are shitting, wrestling fans, I should say. Well, how can you make the goddamn movie without Chris? Well, assholes, I'll explain. Look, I've written screenplays that have been made, some haven't been made. It's always very difficult to write a script, and it is gut-wrenching when you have to take major characters out of a story based on true events, folks. The movie says it right at the beginning. It doesn't say this is a documentary. If you want to see a goddamn Von Erichs documentary, there's 3 out there at least. There's the WWE one, the non-WWE one from about the same time, 15 years ago, that Kevin was a big part of, and there's this other one floating around on YouTube which was some type of college assignment. Gary Hart, no, it's fucking Bill Mercer's in it, Fritz von Erich, and Kevin von Erich. And it's kind of the most positive spin they could do. They really just keep it upbeat for that one. I'm trying to remember that guy's name, but that's floating around. That's about an hour long. So if you want a documentary, you see a documentary. This is a narrative film. For 30 years, people have been saying, we want a Von Erichs movie. They should make that into a movie. Well, now they did, and nobody's happy. As far as the Von Erich, the Chris thing, look, if it were me, I would really have tried, and it seems like the writer-director has stayed. People said, well, Mike, you didn't explain all this. Well, I hadn't read the reviews before I did my first review. Now I have read some of the stuff. The writer-director basically says he had a draft of this script that he had for 5 years that had Chris in it, but as they were getting further along in the process, he really felt like the Chris character and the eventual suicide of Chris would weigh the movie down and be too much to handle. And if you see the movie that exists now with basically the 4 deaths, Jack, David, Carrie, and Mike, yeah, I can see his point, because they handle each death with a lot of dignity and a lot of respect. There's some afterlife stuff with the Von Erich brothers being reunited in the afterlife. A scene that was, I think, really difficult to pull that off without it being cheesy, but they did. So I think that I just have to step back as one writer to another, and obviously this guy is more successful than I am. You don't need to remind me of fucking that. But I have written scripts that have been made, and I can say, this guy, I have to respect his artistic choice. See, an artisan like myself, who I just created this wonderful painting today, I can respect the creative choice of another artiste, okay? So some of the fucking people that are criticizing this goddamn movie, like I said, that probably haven't even seen it, go ahead and write your fucking screenplay. Go right the fuck ahead. Because I'd like to see you assholes get past page 1. First of all, most of the fucks that would think they could write a screenplay, they wouldn't get Final Draft screenwriting program. They'd probably just get a Microsoft Word and typing some goddamn gibberish. They'd have all their tenses fucked up. They wouldn't know what the fuck they were doing. And they would quit after about a day, okay? So that's what the reality is. Most people don't have the goddamn talent, patience. They won't get a bunch of screenwriting books. They won't take classes like I did. They won't respect the craft of screenwriting. Instead, they'll just go see somebody else's movie and bitch about it. Well, I'll bitch about other people's movies, but at least I'll be fucking intelligent enough to say, hey, I couldn't have made that movie, or I can respect this movie, or whatever the fuck. But if you haven't actually done something, it's quite easy to sit on the goddamn sidelines now, isn't it, and criticize people that actually have done it or have tried to do it. So I'm coming at things, gentlemen, from a person who tries to work as much as I can in the film industry as an actor, acting coach, creator of film festivals, maker of worlds, my goddamn self. So I just don't, it just frustrates me when relatively intelligent people criticize the Iron Claw without having seen it and thinking that they could have done better. And that's another gist of this, what I'm getting at. I think a lot of people, especially the wrestlers or the wrestling fans or the wrestling podcasters, whoever the fucks that post on Facebook criticizing this movie, a lot of them, I believe, quite frankly, wish they were involved in the fucking movie. They are either having that V8 moment, wishing that they had sent in their audition tapes or something for this movie when they were doing the casting call, or they wish that they had the resources or had put the time in to write the script or to somehow be involved, and they didn't. So now they're upset. So now they're bitching. That's how I feel. I just feel that a lot of people critiquing this movie wish they were involved. Maybe they don't wish that they played Kevin or Carrie Von Erich themselves, but they wish that they had something to do with it, because now the train has taken off without them. And hey, like I said, you know, if there was a part that I felt that I was qualified for, I knew about this movie casting. I don't think I could have played Harley Race. That probably would have been the closest if they had a call for Dusty Rhodes or something like that, maybe, or a young Bronco Lubick. But in any event, I'm just happy that the goddamn movie's been made. I think we should all be fucking rejoicing. Yes, it's sad that Chris is not in the goddamn movie. Well, get over it. What the fuck? You know, he'll be in the goddamn series or whatever the fuck. So that's it. I wanted to come at you with these further thoughts. I don't want to forget any goddamn thing. I think the guy that played Harley Race did really well. The guy that played Fritz did really well. There's these fucking videos like on WatchMojo.com. It had a headline, 10 times the Von Erich movie lied to your face, or 10 times the Iron Claw lied to you to your face. Sorry, folks. Goddamn WatchMojo assholes don't know about professional wrestling like I do. So I'm not going to go and sit there and watch their goddamn video explaining to me what the fucking Von Erich Iron Claw movie is lying to me. And I wrote, I didn't even watch their goddamn video, but I wrote a comment. I guess the idiots behind this video don't know what based on true events means. It means based on true events, not true events to 100% fucking fact. So all these goddamn people that are coming out of the woodwork trying to educate me about this fucking Von Erich tragedies, I know the goddamn story, okay? So there you fucking have it, folks. So what else? Fritz was really good. The mom that played Doris, was it Maura Tierney? She's been around the block for a while. I thought that was interesting. I mean, I think that's one aspect of the Von Erichs' lives that I don't know too much about is Doris and how she fit into things. I believe she and Fritz got divorced towards the end of their lives. You know, what can you say? I mean, I do know that in the movie, and I think I said this, I did say this in my first review, Doris is shown watching Kerry beat Flair at home on television. As far as I know, that show, the first ever David Von Erich Parade of Champions, was not broadcast live in Texas, as far as I know. So it's factually inaccurate because there's pictures of Doris celebrating with Kerry and the rest of the family, Kevin and Fritz, with Kerry at Texas Stadium when he beat Flair, I believe, on May 4th, 1984. May the 4th be with you. I believe that was the date. Was it the 4th or the 5th or the 6th? But in any event, I'm trying to think what else. Like I said, the first time, the fact that they didn't show this kid, the guy playing Kerry, beating Flair was interesting. The guy playing Flair, yes, somebody felt the need to like videotape that illegally, by the way, videotaping the Flair performance in the movie theater on their phone and posting that on Twitter and trying to say what a crock of shit it was. I found out that, who's that pothead comedian? Jim Brewer actually did a really weird Ric Flair impersonation with Will Ferrell and Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live. If you look that up, maybe I'll put that goddamn link in the comments because I taped that little segment. But they had this weird thing where Ric Flair, I think they just used the name Ric Flair as a goof, but Jim Brewer is playing Ric Flair. It was god-awful too. I mean, woo! You know, Ric Flair, I could do my Ric Flair impersonation. I'm not going to bother right now, but I mean, Ric Flair's, it's not that difficult to impersonate Ric Flair. I think what this asshole was trying to do, the guy in the movie, he was trying, like, there was specific Ric Flair in Texas promos that it looks like he was trying to emulate. And I think, I just don't think that guy was a real wrestling fan. I think he was just an actor who sort of had an idea, but I don't think he was directed very well. I'll say that the same writer-director, I think you got to blame him, because I think the actor who played Flair, I don't think it was for lack of trying. I just think maybe he was trying too much. You know, it was just kind of a weird thing. But if you see that Ric Flair, Fritz Von Erich promo, where they've got the split screen from maybe 82 or 83, it was kind of goofy. Like, Flair was kind of goofy. This fuck has his lights on me now. That's why the picture's all fucked up. Everywhere you go, there's an asshole. In any event, I still like the movie. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember all the shit that I forgot. Try that on for size. The Fritz guy was good. I thought David was really good. I think the guy that played Mike was really good. Yes, there is no Chris Adams. There is no Jimmy Garvin. And I guess one thing that's frustrating me, gentlemen, is I'm talking to people that seem to have an interest or an opinion on this movie, but they haven't seen it. So it's just kind of frustrating because, well, is this in the movie? Is that in the movie? Oh, the movies must suck because they don't have this in it. Oh, they don't have Jimmy Garvin and Chris Adams in the fucking Valet for a Day match? Well, fuck, I'm not going to go see the movie then. Like I said, Kevin survives. That's the whole goddamn gist of the movie, the Von Erich Claw. So if you look at it from that perspective, if you go see it again, a second time, I think there's probably even streaming services that have it by now. I'm going to go see it on the big screen once again. Going to wrap this thing up, gentlemen. If you have further comments or questions, I might do a third video on this. If anyone wants to co-host a Von Erich thing, leave your email in the fucking comments, and I might call upon you to co-host of Von Erich panel with me. Have a happy 2024, Mike Messier.